The aim of the European Commission when we launch this European blockchain pre-commercial procurement is to contribute to prepare for a future version of the European blockchain service infrastructure that will be further presented to you a bit later. It's also to contribute to the development of new solutions and standards in the blockchain arena. And finally, to reinforce European position in blockchain. This action is part of a global strategy that the Commission is implementing on blockchain. There are different elements as part of this strategy: the support to research innovation project, collaborative project through the program Horizon 2020, the support to the creation of an international association called INATBA, which facilitate the interaction in particular between private solution providers and public authorities, but which also aim to work on interoperability and standards aspect. The European Commission is launching this European blockchain pre-commercial procurement action with the objective to prepare for the future versions of the European blockchain service infrastructure that will be presented to you in more details a bit later. In doing so, we will also contribute to the development of new solutions and new standards in the blockchain arena. And the objective is also through this action to reinforce the European position on blockchain and the position of European players on blockchain. Considering the timeline, the European Blockchain Partnership has been created in 2018. The work on the first version of European blockchain service infrastructure, including the first use case, have started 2019. The work is continuing. It will continue with new version to be delivered next year. And the PCP is a process that we start now, beginning of 2020, that works in parallel of this process in order to deliver a new generation of solution for the European blockchain service infrastructure by the year 2022. So, the European blockchain service infrastructure, EBSI, aims to be an infrastructure meeting the highest standard in terms of security, sustainability, privacy, in full compliance of the EU regulation, with the objective to support EU-wide cross-border public services that will be enhanced or improved with blockchain. So EBSI will be an infrastructure with nodes that will be distributed all across Europe and that will help to support an increasing number of applications with focus on public services at first, but over time other types of services could be supported through it. The way we select the application or the use case for this infrastructure is done through the European Blockchain Partnership, which selects every year a group of use cases that have to be implemented in priority. The European blockchain service infrastructure relies on a given number of high-level guiding principles. First, it is a public permission blockchain with a governance structure which will group representatives of the different members of the European Blockchain Partnership and the European Commission. It is by nature a decentralized infrastructure. It has to be scalable. It has to rely on open source. It has to be sustainable. Particular attention is put on this aspect. It has also to become interoperable with other infrastructure and other blockchain solutions. European blockchain service infrastructure aims to benefit to all EU citizens and businesses, in particular when they will have to transact cross-border with public services. With EBSI, they will be able to do it in a more secure and trustful way. It will help national and local administration as well as European institutions to implement administrative processes in a more efficient and trustful way. It will also eventually benefit to any organization by enabling them to propose new services that can be built on the European blockchain service infrastructure.
Let's have a look at what is pre-commercial procurement. It's a public procurement. What does that mean? When the public sector wants to buy something, they issue a call for tender, interested suppliers make offers, and the public procurer selects the best offer that suits his needs. Pre-commercial procurement is doing the same, but it's a public procurement that is organized in a specific way with specific characteristics because it's trying to achieve a specific objective. So let's look at that first. What is pre-commercial procurement for? Its first objective is to modernize the public sector, to improve the quality and efficiency of public services. How is it doing that? It's challenging market players to develop innovative solutions to address specific public sector needs. The second objective is to open business opportunities for the supply side. Whilst it is asking for new innovative solutions to be developed, this process is actually encouraging and enabling suppliers, including also the smaller ones, to grow their business and gain leadership in new markets. How does it work then practically? What are the specific characteristics of pre-commercial procurement? Well, it's a procurement that is buying research and development services. Research and development. So, the development of new innovative solutions that don't exist yet on the market. And it's buying services, not commercial volumes of the final end products yet. The second characteristic is that it's using competitive development in phases. What does that mean? Pre-commercial procurement is not buying these research and development services from only one supplier, it's buying it from a number of suppliers in parallel to compare different solution approaches that could possibly solve the same problem the public sector need. And it's doing that in phases to check after specific milestones which of those alternative solutions are really working best in meeting the public sector requirements. Third important characteristic is that pre-commercial procurement is using risk-benefit sharing at market conditions. What does that mean? Every research and development process has risks and benefits, and the benefits of a research and development are to a large extent who can do what with the results, so the intellectual property rights resulting from the research and development. So those are in pre-commercial procurement, the ownership of the IPR rights are left with the suppliers, not with the procurer, and this is reflected in the contract, in the price at market conditions. Because the suppliers are retaining the ownership of their IPR, they can offer, in fact, offers for the procurement at a better price than in case they were not allowed to keep their own IPR. This makes a pre-commercial procurement cheaper than if the IPR would remain with the supplier, and it also makes it for the suppliers better and easier to commercialize their solutions more widely after the pre-commercial procurement to other potential customers on the market. The last objective of pre-commercial procurement is to create growth and jobs in Europe. So to stimulate research and development in Europe, and it can do that because it's a type of procurement, because of the way it is specifically organized, that falls outside of the international WTO government procurement agreement. Is pre-commercial procurement something new? It may be the first time that you hear about it, because typically procurers and suppliers are engaged more in buying directly commercial products and large commercial volumes of products. But pre-commercial procurement is not something new. It exists already since 2007, when the Commission clarified to all the countries in Europe how you can do that under the legal framework in the European Union. And since then, over 550 pre-commercial procurements have already been implemented out around Europe. If you're interested to see what's been going on so far in your country or in other countries, have a look at our website. On this slide, you see graphically how a pre-commercial procurement fits in the innovation life cycle of a product and in the procurement life cycle of the public sector. So at the moment, we are totally at the left-hand side of the picture in the process doing the open market consultation. We are not buying anything yet at the moment. We are consulting the market about the scope, about the procurement need, and about what could be possible approaches to solve the solution, what is realistic and unrealistic that we could expect the market to do in the upcoming pre-commercial procurement. Once the pre-commercial procurement will be launched, there will be a call for tender, that's the dotted line there, and the vendors that are selected to start will start in the phase 1 of the procurement. So doing a solution design. After that, there is this evaluation that we spoke about to assess which of the solutions are still addressing the public sector need, are feasible both technologically and financially. Those proceed to prototype development, and again after that there is an assessment to see which of them can proceed to the last phase, which is the development and testing of an actual first limited set of products or services, and possibly also already deployment of a limited volume of those resulting solutions. You see immediately the characteristics of pre-commercial procurement there, with multiple vendors developing solutions in parallel, the phased approach, and so on. So here, during this process, the public procurer will be steering this whole research and development process towards its needs by interacting with the suppliers and steering the contract towards its needs. After the pre-commercial procurement is finished, there can be other follow-up procurements. These are normal public procurements that you may know better, using the typical public procurement procedures in your countries for deploying commercial volumes of end products, and those will then wider diffuse the newly developed solutions. You see in the picture in the bubbles supplier, but it could be more than one supplier. It could be a consortium of different suppliers or individual entities, researchers, for example, answering to the call for tender. At the end, in the blue bubble, you see that all possible suppliers that participated in the pre-commercial procurement, whether they made it to the end or not, and even other suppliers on the market, supplier X, could participate to the public procurements of innovative solutions that may follow PCPs, because these are new procurements that are conducted open and transparently according to the rules for those procurements. We had a look so far at what is pre-commercial procurement. Let's have a look now at what it is not. Firstly, it's not a research and development grant. It is really a purchase, a public procurement, so it is demand-driven. The buyer will define the requirements that the solutions need to meet. He will select suppliers based on best value for money and steer the research and development towards its needs. He will determine which vendors continue to the next phase in the process, and the whole transaction, the whole procurement, is a purchase at the market price. So there are no funding rates applied when you receive financing for participating in such a pre-commercial procurement. It is a purchaser, so the procurer is also buying something. He's buying usage and licensing rights, and possibly already deployment of a limited volume of solutions. That is quite different from R&D grants, which are supply side driven typically, so it's the supplier defining and steering the scope of the R&D that he wants to perform. And R&D grants are not procurements, they are subsidies, where a funding rate is applied on the costs, the R&D costs that the supplier makes, and different categories of eligible and non-eligible costs are defined. And a grant, a supplier is also not selling anything to a customer. Another important aspect is that pre-commercial procurement is not a regular procurement of innovative solutions. You will know best the regular procurements for deploying innovative solutions, where the procurer acts as an early adopter to buy and deploy commercial volumes of innovative solutions that are newly arriving on the market. Pre-commercial procurement is, as we discussed, a bit different because it focuses on the research and development phase before the purchase of large commercial volumes of solutions. It focuses on steering development of new solutions to meet public sector needs for which there are no solutions on the market yet. It's comparing and validating alternative solution approaches to reduce the risk for the later big deployment procurements that may come afterwards. And it's offering the possibility of a first customer reference only for non-commercial volumes of solutions, not yet for large quantity production yet. So, now that you know what is pre-commercial procurement, you may wonder why participate to such a procurement. Well, we have evidence that pre-commercial procurements that have already been implemented have several benefits for the supply side. It speeds up the time to market to bring breakthrough innovations to the market. Why? Because it's a co-creation process between the supply and the demand side working together to bring solutions to the market that meet a specific need. It's an opportunity to share the development risks with the first customer, and because of the risk-benefit sharing, to have optimal conditions for wider commercialization to other customers later. The whole process, because of the phased approach with gradually growing assignments from a small solution design up to real delivery and testing of final products, is also facilitating the access of new innovative players and also smaller players to the procurement market. And finally, at the end of the process, you'll have a first customer reference that can help win other contracts and also attract financial investors to your company. So what is the concrete evidence about impacts that pre-commercial procurements have already achieved around Europe? Is it true that they are opening a route to the market for new market players? Yes. Well, on average in public procurement in Europe, the percentage of contracts that go to new market players is not that large, 29%. In pre-commercial procurements, it's more than the double. Also, in value of the total contracts, not in just how many contracts are won by small players. Is it also helping large players to bring products to the market? Yes, a sizable amount of pre-commercial procurement contracts are also won by large companies, either on their own or in collaboration with smaller companies. What about stimulating cross-border company growth around Europe? Well, sadly enough, the average in public procurement in Europe for stimulating cross-border growth is not so fantastic, but in pre-commercial procurement, it is 20 times more. Almost 1/3 of the pre-commercial procurement contracts that have been implemented on Europe were awarded cross-border, not to companies from the same country as the procurer, in other words, but to companies from other countries around Europe. Is it helping to create growth and jobs in Europe? Yes, almost all of the bidders in the pre-commercial procurements in Europe are doing almost all of their R&D also in Europe. Is it helping companies to grow their business? Well, what we can say is that 2 years after the pre-commercial procurement are finished, a vast majority of those contractors that made it really to the last phase of the PCP, 86%, have already commercialized their solutions. and half of all suppliers that participated in all the phases of the PCP, even those that only participated in the beginning, have already generated revenue. In terms of the small companies, SMEs, 1/3 of them have by then already attracted also venture capital backing. So many benefits, in other words, many reasons to participate in a pre-commercial procurement.
So what is European blockchain services infrastructure? I would like to highlight two main ideas. The first one is that EBSI means infrastructure but also services. And the second is that it's being built iteratively. And this is where this pre-commercial procurement process about to be launched can definitely help in making it a better and more mature solution. Going back to the first aspect, EBSI is composed of nodes, which in this first version will be operated by all participants that are, as Pierre explained in the introduction, the members of the European Blockchain Partnership and the European Commission. These nodes will give access to cross-border digital public services, which are basically the initial set of 4 use cases that I will describe later. It's also important to highlight that EBSI architecture has been defined to be multi-protocol. So we have a degree of flexibility in adopting new protocols in case we need to. This means that EBSI is an infrastructure capable of supporting multiple blockchain protocols that provide access through each node to all of the implemented use cases. In this first iteration, we leverage on well-known protocols. Being more precise, EBSI nodes will initially provide access to 2 blockchains, one per mission, where we use Ethereum Enterprise, and we rely on the Ethereum Besu client for this, and also a private blockchain, which is based on Hyperledger Fabric. Next iterations should help to improve what we are about to deliver in this first version of EBSI, which will be tested during this year. And we expect to have the first version of EBSI production ready with the second iteration that will be by Q1 2021. As I said, there were 4 use cases selected to help in shaping the infrastructure layer of the first version of EBSI. To define the functional and technical requirements of these use cases, the Commission has worked together with the EBB members, organized in user groups, and the same methodology will be applied for the new set of use cases to be selected in 2020. The initial set of use cases are the following 4. We have a use case about notarization of documents for auditing purposes, whose main goal is to aid in, as I said, in auditing processes, and basically means creating a proof of existence of an electronic document and its associated metadata, so the auditors can in a later process check its integrity. There's also a transversal use case on identity, the ESIF, which means European Self-Sovereign Identity Framework, which aims to deliver a self-sovereign identity framework to enable citizens, covering both natural and legal persons, to be in full control of their identity data and use it to authenticate not only to services offered by EBSI, but also to existing legacy applications. The specificity of this use case is that we aim to incorporate by default the EU Trust Framework that the Identity and Trust Services Regulation, known as EIDAS, provides in the EU context. As a subset of the type of credentials supported by ESIF, we also have the diplomas use case. The particularity of the diplomas use case comes from the specific representation of a diploma information in the form of an ESIF verifier credential, and the need to define also a trusted issue list that will list the diploma's authoritative sources. This basically means which type of education credentials can be issued by each identified issuer. And finally, we have the trusted data sharing use case, which tries to solve the main business done by the Commission applications that should help to move away from a central database to a distributed registry. To illustrate a bit better what is our vision, the vision that we have on these use cases, it's probably better to watch the video that we already published in the CEF Digital site. From an architecture point of view, we can see in this slide a high-level architecture representation of what I explained before about the services and the infrastructure that are part of EBSI. In this case, starting by the lower layer, we see that we have a network layer. As I explained, we support blockchain networks using internet, like the permission one based on Hyperledger Enterprise, on Ethereum Enterprise, but also private networks like the one that we are using for the trusted data sharing use case. There's an EBSI chain layer, and this represents the protocols, the blockchain protocols that we support as part of the infrastructure, but also the storage capabilities that are offered by default in EBSI. Then, on top of that, we have the EBSI external interfaces layer, which are the difference, that it's a layer that basically is comprised of all the components that provide interfaces that allow to interconnect with the chain layer, the storage layer, etc., but that have external dependencies. Then we also have an EBSI core services layer, which is the main entry point to the EBSI nodes. This is the layer that basically provides all the APIs that can be consumed from an EBSI client, and that also allows the EBSI wallet to consume EBSI services. And then on top of that, we have the EBSI application layer, which is divided into a use case layer and the common applications layer. The main difference between the two is that basically we always start with the implementation of a use case, which typically translates into the deployment of a decentralized application. But when this work is done, it automatically becomes part of the common applications domain. So we offer a unified way of consuming those services via an agreed API. In terms of roadmap, we started in April 2019 with the selection of this first set of use cases. During Q2, we kicked off the project. We've been working during 2019 with the aim of delivering the first version of EBSI version 1.0, with the first implementation of the use cases that will happen by the end of March 2020. And we are in parallel also already preparing the selection of the use cases that could be part of EBSI V2. EBSI V2 is initially planned to be delivered by Q1 2021. And as I said, this is intended to be the first production-ready environment of EBSI.
Hello everybody, my name is Niels McGrath and I work for the Stakeholder Management Office within Digit, and I'm pleased to be here today to give you an overview of what we're doing in the open market consultation, specifically with the questionnaire, and then walking you through the next steps that will lead up to the launch of the pre-commercial procurement. But first of all, let's start with the why. So why an open market consultation? Well, the open market consultation is designed really to do three main things. Firstly, to inform all of you about the upcoming blockchain PCP. PCP being pre-commercial procurement. The second reason is that really it is about understanding or asking the market about what are the latest things that you're working on. So what are the latest developments in blockchain approaches and technology that could be interesting to work on in the scope of this pre-commercial procurement exercise? So we'd really like to hear from you as to what you believe are the main areas that could benefit the European blockchain services infrastructure in the long term. And so we're going to use that information once we have collected it through the consultation to really scope what the PCP tender specifications will be. We want to put out a pre-commercial, we want to put out a tender that makes sense and that allows you to respond in a way where you think that there's some really interesting work and some really added value that you can provide to the process. Okay, so how will it happen, the open market consultation? Well, we have 3 key channels. Obviously, we have this webinar today to kind of open up and kick off the open market consultation. And then we have an open market consultation questionnaire. Now, the questionnaire is really crucial, and we hope that you guys will take the time to respond to some of the questions that we have in there. What it will allow us to do is to get a first understanding of where the market is around different types of themes and around 2 key challenges, which I'll go into in just a minute. And then finally, we have an OMC, or open market consultation event, where we hope to bring players in the European ecosystem, blockchain ecosystem, together to be able to discuss, think together, and work out what we think will be the most interesting places to work on in the blockchain arena. And again, all in the context of trying to build a European blockchain service infrastructure for the public good. Great. Okay, on to the next section. Okay, so let's talk for a moment about the structure of the questionnaire. Now, essentially, it's in 2 parts. So we have challenge 1, which is called Designing the Future of EBSI, or the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. And then we have challenge 2, which is creating a European blockchain benchmarking and integration environment. Each question is actually structured into 4 parts. So if I take you back to challenge 1 for a moment, we've got lots of different themes in there which are interesting to look at in the context of EBSI, but also more generally in developments in the blockchain space. So we picked out a few: European blockchain, green blockchain, cybersecurity, tokenization. Well, you can see the list there. And what we're trying to, or the way that we've structured the question, is really in 4 parts. Firstly, to allow you to define the kind of problem space, how you see the challenges and issues in that particular theme or related to that particular challenge. And then for you to describe what you believe is a potential solution. And then we're interested to hear how would you go about, or how would you approach building a solution to that particular problem. And then fourthly, it offers you also, or the questionnaire offers you also, the opportunity to talk about any relevant standards, or potentially even standards you think should be created in relation to that problem space or that solution space. So there we go. We've got themes on the left-hand side, which are a little more generic, a little more general, which will give you the space to talk about, hopefully, the things that you're working on. And the second is a really specific need. So this challenge 2 around creating a blockchain benchmarking and integration environment, I think will be a very important milestone for the EBSI to be able to then bring in and test new solutions as the infrastructure progresses. So there we go. Okay, perhaps now just a couple of guidelines for the questionnaire, just hopefully so we can make things clear. Now, it might have seemed a little intimidating on the slide before, but you don't have to answer all the questions. You can answer as many questions as you like, or as few as you like. We want people to provide input on areas where they think they can really add value. So don't worry, no points will be counted against you or anything like that if you only answer 1 question. Second thing is, you can attach documents and links if they're relevant. Hopefully we're going to have lots and lots of responses to this survey, so please be kind to us and ensure that we're not kind of leafing through just kind of promotional material. Make sure that if you're linking or attaching documents, they really are relevant to the subject at hand. We appreciate that. And maybe just on a logistical front, just so you know, you can save your progress when you're providing input to the questionnaire. In the questionnaire, you can save your progress in the tool which we're using, which is EU Survey, but it doesn't do it automatically. So you've really got to go up to the button and click save. So you've been warned. Maybe it might be worth putting your answers into some kind of document and then uploading them or copy pasting them when you're ready. And maybe just a little philosophy to end in terms of the guidelines. Bear in mind what Einstein said: your answer should be as simple as it can be, but not simpler. I know it's not easy to gauge exactly, or I know that maybe some would like clearer instructions on exactly how they should answer the questionnaires, but this is the best that we've got for you. So hopefully that's clear, or clearish. Okay, so on to the next slide. Okay, and now on to the key milestones for this open market consultation. So on the 17th of January, we published the open market consultation questionnaire on the Europa website. You can find a link to that if you Google European Blockchain PCP, but then again, you probably already know the link to that page, as that's how and where you signed up for this webinar. Okay, and then the deadline to submit your questionnaire answers is the 3rd of March. And the reason that it's the 3rd of March is that obviously we would like to host an event here in Brussels on the 11th of March to bring vendors together to discuss a little bit more, or for us to present the results of this open market consultation, and also for us to continue the discussion on what should be in the scope of this pre-commercial procurement. So we hope to see you there, and we will set the deadline to register for the vendor event as the 23rd of February. And again, you can do that on our European Blockchain PCP webpage. So there we have it. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and we'll now move on to the next section.